Like many others, I've been having a blast with Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The game wears its heart on its sleeve with strong vision, great writing, and easily the best soundtrack to grace our ears this year. If this isn't played live at the Game Awards, there's going to be at least one very upset person at Second Wind. Me. Yeah, it's me. I've listened to the Lumiere song on repeat every day. It's just an utterly beautiful piece of music.
Clair Obscur trouveras-tu, trouveras effet. Clair Obscur, noyau peinture trouveras sans aide.
The studio behind Expedition 33 has a lot of interesting things about it, so let's take a minute to go through some of the background on Sandfall Interactive. Sandfall Interactive was started by Guillaume Brochet, who previously worked at Ubisoft as an associate producer and narrative lead. He apparently came up with the idea for Clair Obscur Expedition 33 while bored at Ubisoft during the peak years of COVID. He eventually left Ubisoft and took to Reddit and other online forums to recruit people to work on what would eventually become Expedition 33. He was joined by Tom Gillerman, who also worked at Ubisoft as a gameplay programmer on AAA titles. The writer of Expedition 33, Jennifer Svedberg-Yen, was recruited by Brochet via a Reddit post putting out a call for voice actors. She ended up becoming the lead writer on the game. Previously, she had spent most of her career as a private equity investor, according to Gene Park's fantastic article about the game over on the Washington Post. The composer for Expedition 33, Laurent Testard, was found on SoundCloud. He had never worked on a video game project before, but was doing covers and composing his own music and sharing it on the platform. Testard recruited the lead singer and co-composer Elise Duport-Percer. She has a ton of amazing covers of famous video game tracks on YouTube. The BBC reports that many of the studio's 33 members were found in a similar manner, which isn't as uncommon as you think it would be when looking for talent. A great example is Wayne June, the narrator of Darkest Dungeon, who sadly passed away earlier this year. He was found by Red Hook through his readings of Lovecraft audiobooks and his personal YouTube channel. He had never been involved in a game before that. For a story a little closer to home, I found Jay Mate through a random Reddit post, and I found Darren Mooney through Twitter. You never really know where you're going to find talent. It's more uncommon that a game of this scope and quality was made by such a young development team right out of the gate. Thankfully, Sandfall reportedly had some help with funding from Brochet's parents and secured a publishing deal early on from Kepler Interactive, marketing from Xbox, and plenty of help from outside contractors as well. Reports after the game's release incorrectly stated that Sandfall Interactive was composed of many Ubisoft veterans, which has since been clarified in Park's story on Washington Post. Only 3 of the team's 33 members are from Ubisoft, with the vast majority being very talented junior developers. There is a lot of joy and sincerity in how we made the game, and I think it's something players can connect with because we have soul in this game, and it's impossible to reproduce somewhere else without the team here, Brochet said in Park's Washington Post article. We are emptied out. There is all of us in this game, nothing left. Since its release, Expedition 33 has gone on to sell 2 million copies and has no signs of slowing down. It's a bona fide hit for the studio and is likely to be nominated for oodles of awards from around the industry. The comments from players have been incredible too, clearly feeling the passion and heart that was put into this project. The story of Sandfall Interactive's formation is similar to a lot of new studios that have sprung up, with veteran talent from major publishers and studios building new teams that are smaller and nimbler, with budgets typically ranging somewhere between $10 million and $50 million, or AA level, and taking advantage of the incredible leaps in technology and game engine tools now available to developers to make their dream projects. Many of these studios are partnering with newer publishers that are developer-friendly, because they're formed by people who made games and understand that chasing endless growth isn't compatible with creative industries, or any industry really. Just like I talked about in last week's Unpacked episode, in the games industry, the chase for endless growth and out-of-control budgets has resulted in layoffs upon layoffs, studio closures, and the major players only focusing on the same IP over and over again to hit their financial targets. These studios and publishers used to be the dream jobs for many, but have often become stagnant, stifling creativity in favor of what's going to make the most money. This has led to an obvious exodus of talent from major publishers and development studios. Back at the Escapist, Marty and I worked on a video that documented a bunch of the startup studios formed by industry veterans over the years. Some have been successful, some have shut down, and some are nearing the release of their first projects. While the amount of new studios established in recent years has slowed down due to a lack of funding, I think most developers would tell you that at this point, they'd rather go it on their own if they have the ability to or are willing to take the risk. Newer publishers that are doing things differently are more willing to take on that risk. Kepler Interactive is leading the charge, in my opinion. I've talked about them before, but Kepler Interactive, founded in 2021, is one of the most exciting publishers in the industry right now. They publish Sifu, Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, Pacific Drive, Scorn, Chia, Bionic Bay, and of course Expedition 33, among other titles. They also likely have another incoming hit on their hands with Rematch from Sifu developer Slowcap, which had over 100,000 players take part in its beta this past month. Kepler Interactive is co-owned by the developers in their publishing lineup, which gives them a say in the business decisions the publisher makes. They also get to utilize all the different resources Kepler provides, such as marketing, financing, publishing, technology, and other teams' expertise, according to their website. Studios in this model retain all of their creative freedoms, which has resulted in a varied and solid lineup of games. These days, when Kepler announces something, it's pretty much immediately on my radar. I imagine more publishers like Kepler are on their way based on their success with this model. As I write this, the industry is currently being reshaped. The major publishers everyone knows like Ubisoft, EA, Activision, Xbox, and PlayStation have all had struggles in recent years for a variety of reasons. Nintendo's gonna Nintendo, but even they're not exempt from weird business choices as of late. Ballooning budgets, games that are too largely scoped and take too many years to make while chasing trends, overpaid executives, crazy expectations from out-of-touch shareholders, and lack of originality, to name a few of the obvious things. The main culprit has clearly been the chase to cash in on the games as a service trend, which has cost every one of these companies hundreds of millions of dollars with not much to show for it, outside of the established properties that already made money for them like sports games, Call of Duty, and free-to-play mobile games. EA and Take-Two both tried to get into supporting the independent developer space with spin-off labels EA Originals and Private Division. And while they saw some success, they still didn't exactly fit with the mostly non-risk-taking major publisher model that exists today. EA Originals still exists, but isn't publishing nearly the amount of games they originally were a few years ago. And Private Division was recently sold to an undisclosed buyer after laying off most of its staff and ending contracts with studios. If you remember, even Ubisoft was doing this with smaller projects like Child of Light, Valiant Hearts, Grow Up, etc. There was a time when major publishers were willing to fund smaller projects, and were fine with them not selling absurdly high numbers. They had the major franchises that would bring in the cash, which would allow them the space to make these types of projects. Over time though, the focus shifted to games making endless amounts of money through live service titles and blah blah, you know the rest. For quite a long time though, there really were just AAA and indie games. A lot of AA level games were viewed as lesser than AAA, and were often interesting games, but not very good ones. But the industry has come a long way since then, and the AA sector has been coming back strong as veteran talent leave or are laid off from major publishers, and we're getting a lot of fantastic big games that aren't costing hundreds of millions of dollars to make. Warhorse Studios knocked it out of the park with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 earlier this year with a budget in the ballpark of $50 million, as I was told by creative director Daniel Vavra. Warhammer Space Marine 2 was a massive hit for Saber Interactive last year, and reportedly cost less than half of Doom Eternal's production cost, which is estimated to be around $150 million. Saber Interactive CCO, Tim Willits, who previously worked at id Software, told IGN in an interview last October, "We don't need to sell 4 million units to make it a success," Willits said. "There are many games, sadly, especially out of North American developers, where if you do not sell 5 million copies, you are a failure. I mean, what business are we in where you fail if you sell less than 5 million? In a separate interview with GameFile, Saber Interactive CEO Matt Karch told Steven Totillo, "I think the age of the 200 million, 300 million, 400 million AAA games is on its way out. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't know how best to put it. I think if anything has contributed more to the loss of jobs, it's the multi-$100 million budget. Even Xbox's and PlayStation's internal studios are making games that are more in the realm of AA budget releases with Avowed, South of Midnight, Hellblade 2, and Astrobot. Mafia: The Old Country from 2K is also being marketed as a properly scoped game, with a surprising $50 price tag attached to it. While some games are heading towards that dreaded $80 price point, or maybe even $100 if we're looking at Grand Theft Auto, the fact that more publishers are willing to play around with the prices is a good sign that things are headed in a better direction. Sandfall Interactive and Expedition 33 aren't an indie underdog story, and it's not about just putting AAA games to shame. The studio had lots of help, a great partner in Kepler Interactive, and access to a lot of resources to make a really good game. This is about giving the right people the right resources to make a video game with realistic sales expectations. And I think that's the future the industry is heading towards as the major publishers continue to contract because their expectations and demands can never be met, because there's no goal to meet. The point of this video isn't to say AAA games suck and shouldn't be made, or that the people working on them aren't talented. The point is that I think the way games are being made is changing for the better, with more people that aren't just focused on endless profit being in charge of the purse and means of productions. It's important to remember this industry is still very young, and the way games are created and funded has evolved a lot in recent years. I'm also not saying that everything is going to be all sunshine and rainbows. New publishers starting up could fall into the very same traps that the current major publishers are finding themselves in. Quite a few of these new studios have also tried their hand at chasing trends right out of the gate, and repeating the same mistakes that came before. The recently shut down Spectre Divide is a good example of that. For Expedition 33, this was the right team with the right resources and partners to make a really damn special game, and I am so happy it exists along with many other great games I've played this year.